So, this episode, I wanted to talk a little bit about what some of the universe is going to look like, both large and small. Now, I know that some of you may have watched some of the History Channel programming or the Science Channel programs that cover these topics in detail. So, I won't go too deep into it. But I wanted to talk a little bit about what the universe looks like, both on a large and small scale. So it would stand to reason to look to history being a larger concept than most would rather think of, rather than ignore it. But I wanted to try and bring that to light in some ways. So, anywho, what the universe as its larger scale would look like can resemble the human brain in its consistency, both in its fullness and in its most expansive understanding that we have so far, given the microwave background radiation picture, or through the use of the picture of that, it does give it kind of a look and or a resemblance to the human brain when you do an MRI. Very similar, both in the structures we see in the universe and in our visible area that we can actually see given the microwave background radiation picture we have, and what the brain looks like, the human brain looks like after an MRI is completed. Very similar they are, both in their composition and the structures that appear that resemble the human brain in the larger scale of the universe. Now, there has been some speculation that atoms don't look like they've been depicted in some of the books, but what atoms really look like is they're mostly empty space. So that would also stand to reason that things that are really small mimic things that are really large, because we know from studying our universe and our galaxy and our own existence at times, we understand that things have a fractal pattern, especially when they go from really large to really small. So, keeping that in mind, the fractal pattern doesn't end anywhere. There's fractals everywhere, which is why most of the humans do have similar features. So it would stand to reason that something very large would also have the same fractal appearance at its smallest level. So that would mean that the larger of the two would be, let's see, similar to the smaller. Now, take a look at the galaxy, for instance. We have a spiral galaxy, and it's basically what we've been told we have. Now, if you look at the solar system we live in, we are spiraling around our core, which is our star, our lonely star in our sky, which is our sun. And this guy is kind of on the smaller end of other stars, speculatively, and is out there at a good distance, 98 trillion miles or so, they say, which could be 6,000, could be 98 trillion, whatever. It's a distance away, okay? It's a long way out there. Now, when you look at how the orbit patterns exist around a star, the atomic value of that same structure exists in the same way. So an atom has a nucleus at its core, and the core is the energy that exists within that nucleus. And it is light, or a radiant pattern of energy that resembles light. Well, that is light. Light emits from the center of an atom, called its atomic energy or its magnetic energy. So, yeah, it's a nice little equation to look at that, but nice, even smaller to understand it, that it still has electrons and protons that orbit it just around the center of the nucleus to give it that same feel of a small solar system. Now, the elements that are surrounding our star are, we call them 9 planets, that we live on one. Potentially, we could have lived on a few others in the solar system. In the past, Mars would have been habitable, and the same with Venus, and the same with maybe a couple of other planetoids in our own solar system nearby us. we can't possibly think that we're the only human civilization to ever have had the potential or the ability for space flight or space travel. There's evidence on Mars that would speak to the existence of a previous human existence on that surface, and that we may have inhabited 2 planets in our solar system in the near past. But I would say near past because it's a grand scale of time that we're talking about. Long count, Katun, if you study the Mayan calendar. It's a long count calendar, but in the grand scheme of how we gauge our history, it's near in the past, not farther away. Because both on Mars and on Earth, there are pyramids present, and pyramids don't just get there by themselves. They have to be built by someone. Whether that was us or another version of us in the past is left to anyone's guess. I don't think it was really specifically us that did it. It might have been another version of humanity that existed in the past. Perhaps the Nephilim or the Neanderthal. I don't believe the Neanderthals were as unintelligent or stupid as people depict them to be. That they were any different from us as far as their bone structure was denser, their bodies were more robust. So it would stand to reason that it's possible they were more built or more prone for space travel than we were, or that we are, rather, because our bone density is lesser than theirs. Our construction of our body is less robust, more fragile, more, I would say they would consider it modern human or Homo erectus. And I believe the Neanderthal falls into the Homo habilis era. I'm not sure if I'm right on that or not, but I want to be specific that the Neanderthal and the human, the modern human, are different in species. Not specifically different in the line of species and succession, but maybe a separate entity of humanity altogether that used to exist and simultaneously exist on the planet along with us, modern man. Because Neanderthals were, again, not stupid. I don't believe they were stupid at all. I don't believe they were stunted or that they could not speak. I believe they had the power of speech and even had the power of sentient cognition the way we do. Maybe even the same or more pronounced abilities than we have. Who knows? Their brains were a little bit smaller, but that doesn't denote any sort of intelligence lack. That you can say by the volume of the brain that it would, denote more intelligence with a larger volume. But that's not necessarily true. It doesn't have any grounds or basis in real science to factually say that because you have a larger brain, it means you're more intelligent. That's just not true. You can't prove that. Now, you can say that it's typical of a large brain to have more intelligence, that it's typical of a smaller brain to have less intelligence, but that does not make it true. Typicality does not make it actuality. So that just makes it typical. Now we don't know if Neanderthals, as 100% Neanderthal, would be less intelligent or more intelligent than modern man. We do know, however, that there are some of us that still exist in this world today that have at least a percentage of Neanderthal DNA in our own. So it would stand to reason that even if we are modern man, we do have presentations of Neanderthal DNA in our own in a mix that is within our own genome. That does mean that Neanderthals and modern human did in fact interbreed, and it was possible because we were both of the same genus. So in that direction of thought, I wanted to try and bridge some gaps here between large and small. Thinking on the larger end of things, the solar system and the galaxy do resemble things that are very small. The solar system is a simple model of an atom, with the sun as its nucleus, and the planets are the protons and electrons orbiting around the sun, ergo the nucleus of the atom. The larger aspect of it, the galaxy, the galactic neighborhood, the area in which we reside in the galaxy in our known universe, does resemble a portion of the entirety of the universe as a whole that we have been able to view at least an extremity of it, to the point of a larger picture that gives us a resemblance to the human brain, both in the clusters of globular clusters and groupings of, other, universes, or not universes, but galaxies and solar systems within those areas that do give us at least a resemblance of the human brain in picture. Now, the human brain itself does have a dendritic and or neuron structure. You know, your brain does have a neurological structure similar to that of the universe as a whole. So, you know, fractal things do exist. You want to see fractal pictures or paintings, then I do recommend looking into some of the more esoteric stuff. Like, let's see, there was a good album put out by Tool a couple of years ago called 10,000 Days. Well, a few years ago, actually, not a couple, but more than a few, actually, about a decade or so, but whatever. About a decade, I would say. 10,000 Days was a really good album. And that album does have in it, in the picture, if you were able to get the actual CD case with the fold-out lens display to give the viewer a perspective 3D view of the paintings on the inside that were done by certain artists that were in the band, in other words. Maynard James Keenan is a very good artist, and don't recall if he actually painted those paintings that are inside the album cover or not, but they were very good, and also displayed some fractal artwork. Now, if you do the same thing with, let's see, another album that has fractal design, Lateralis, which was a very good one, which is one of my favorite albums by them. Very good album. Every song on that CD was great. That record was impressive. Okay, love Tool, by the way. But anyhow, those two records do have fractal art, and I believe that most of Tool's albums carried with it some of the similarities of fractal art. But to be perfectly clear, you want to see what I mean by fractal, just type in the word fractal into Google. That should be, let's see, let's type it out ourselves. Fractal. Now, that would be spelled Frank Romeo Alpha Charlie Tango Alpha Lima, or FRACTAL. Now, the second video that shows up in my listing for fractals would be, let's see, 10 hours of fractal animations. Electric Sheep video is in 1080 HD, slow TV. It's about a 10-hour video. So, yeah, 10 hours and 11 minutes. Kind of a long one, but it does give you some good trippy art to look at. The same one that's about the third one down is Sapphires by Mandelbrot, fractal zoom, 8K, 60 frames per second. And the video is a collaboration between Alibad, Albaid ST, Mathstown, and Albaid ST is one of the best ultra fractal artists that has ever existed, I would say. Electric Sheep also has the fourth, or rather the, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth slot, actually. Good Lord. The fifth slot on the video that pulls up in the top. So it does have a 3-hour animation video, the Fractal version 2.0 Meditation HD. It has 8.5 million views, and it was posted about 4 years ago. So Electric Sheep's a good one to check out, and also does a lot of really cool Technicolor looking fractal artwork there, along with the music. Quite a good jump into fractals there to get you an idea of what I was talking about. So that basically means everything looks the same as you get larger and smaller, both at the maximum or at the macro to the micro. It's the same shape is just continued on to the microscopic from the macroscopic. So, you know, macrocosm to microcosm, same thing. It's a very cool art and a very cool medium to display your abilities if you were able to do that. But it's very neat. And I just wanted to try and explain some of that it would stand to reason that if the universe does mimic things that are very small, it also could do the same thing for things that are in the middle. So I'm going to continue that illusion further by saying that it's possible that the entirety of our universe, we are existing inside the brain of someone yet larger than ourselves. Kind of a trippy thing to think of, right? So just something to consider and something to think on. Hope you guys have a good one. Thanks again for watching. Please like and subscribe. Have a great day. This has been Rayne. I appreciate it.